So greetings to everyone and welcome to EUROSTUDENT Talks webinar. This time we're going to present you some results and discuss a topic that I believe is hot and timely in many countries. It's the funding of higher education. Our focus today will be on Germany, but of course the importance of this matter is wider. And I also hope that we can discuss it in more general after the presentation. We are recording the webinar as usually, but we won't make the recording available right after the event this time because actually you here have an exclusive chance to see the results because the study is not yet published and that's why we can't upload the recording directly after the event this time. Our speaker today is my dear colleague from Eurostudent Consortium, Christoph Kvosch, who is a researcher at the ZHW, the German Center for Higher Education Research and Science Studies. Christoph studied economics at the University of Duisburg-Essen, where he graduated with a master's degree in 1999. Subsequently, he worked there until 2005 as research assistant at the Institute for European Economic and Social Policy. This job was followed by teaching activities in economics at Jacksonville University in Florida and Carinthia University of Applied Sciences in Austria. Christoph has been employed at the German Center for Higher Education Research and Science Studies since 2007, where he has been involved in both national and international empirical projects, including the EUROSTUDENT. Alongside his work at the DZHW, he was lecturer for economics of education in the master's program Science and Society at Leibniz University Hanover from 2013 to 2018. And in 2018, Christoph completed his doctorate at the Faculty of Economic Sciences at the University of Münster. Hello, Christoph. It is a pleasure to have you here. I am sure that you have very many interesting results to show us, so please, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Marlene, for inviting me and for the very nice introduction. Can you see the slide in the presentation mode?
No, at the moment not.
Okay.
I think you haven't started the screen sharing.
Yeah, I do that again. Just give me a second.
At least when we tested, it worked, but yeah, now I think it starts working. Yeah, and then the presentation mode. All okay now.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Marlene, and hello to everyone. Yeah, I'm very happy that that we have some guests here because this is not a topic which is conducting an international comparison. That's a purely national study, but maybe it's nevertheless interesting, at least a bit. The title of my presentation is Public-Private Funding of Higher Education Revisited, a new in-depth analysis for Germany, because there is a predecessor study. In 2007 and 2008, our institution conducted an international comparative project which was EU funded, and it was called Public-Private Funding of Higher Education, a Social Balance. Excuse me. And there were all in all 6 European countries that participated in the study. And The goal of the study was to quantify higher education funding without research and the cost sharing between the public and the private sector. Ever since, I had the idea that the results that we came up in 2008 and which were quite interesting, that these results should be updated. But the problem is the project was quite complex and very labor intensive. And it wouldn't have been possible to update the results just like this, like for instance, with work on the weekends. But you would need a research project on its own to do that. And luckily, last year, I received internal funding to update at least the results for Germany. And yeah, let's take a look at what came out of this study. Let's first take a look at the project design. The theoretical frame was supplied by an analytical concept from Bruce Johnstone, who is an American economist. And he developed a concept to capture cost sharing in higher education, especially in an international comparative perspective. The data that are used are mainly secondary data, for instance, from the German Federal Statistical Office, from various federal ministries, from the Federal Employment Agency, student support organizations, and so on. And sometimes I was lucky to receive special analysis from some of these data providers, which were very helpful. And the method applied is simply descriptive statistical systems analysis based on aggregate cross-sectional data. Okay. Now this is a look at the analysis scheme for higher education funding that I will use and that we also used for the predecessor study. And in the first step, we will take a look at the total expenses on higher education. And we will divide this into a private share and a public share. In the second step, the public share will be divided into expenses for private households, in this case for students and students' parents, and expenses for higher education institutions. And in the last step, the public expenses for private households will be divided further into direct cash, direct non-cash, and indirect cash support. And in a few minutes, I will explain what these support categories mean. And before we come to that analysis scheme, I would like to present the core of my analysis, so to speak. This is a quite long list of public support items that are related to the funding of higher education. And I will not go through the whole list because that is quite time consuming, but I will introduce some support items so that you get an idea of what is actually behind the analysis. First, for instance, I identified public support for higher education institutions in terms of the teaching allocations. And the public sector spent in 2023 a bit more than 23 billion euros on teaching at higher education institutions. And this amounted to 64% of all public support to higher education. And in the next category, direct support cash, this is direct support for students in the form of cash, like, for instance, BAföG grants. BAföG is the main instrument for monetary support for students in Germany. And BAföG grants amounted to a bit more than 1.4 billion euros, which would be 4% of all public support to higher education. There are various student support foundations providing scholarships for students. This is 0.6% of all public support. There are, for instance, orphans' pensions from statutory pension insurance, statutory accident insurance, and civil service social security funds. Why is that included? Orphans' pensions in Germany are usually paid until the age of 18 of the orphan, and then the support stops. But if the orphan is taking part in higher education, then orphans' pensions are prolonged until the age of 27 of the child in higher education. Students may receive general housing benefits in case they are not entitled to BAföG or not anymore entitled to BAföG. This amounted to 0.2% of all public support. Under very specific conditions, students may receive unemployment benefits alongside studying. And that was 0.01% of all public support. And there are also various support items that are related to the BAföG loans, because they're not only BAföG grants, but also BAföG loans. And students may get different subsidies on BAföG loans. Yeah, these are just some examples for direct cash support to students. And the next category is direct non-cash support to students. These are simply transfers in kind to students. That means students profit from price subsidized goods or services. And one example is benefits from non-contributory statutory health insurance. In Germany, students whose parents are insured via statutory health insurance, students get free health insurance via their parents until the age of 25. And between the age of 25 and 30, students get reduced contribution to statutory health insurance. That means students have to make their own contributions to health insurance, but they pay a reduced price compared to people who are voluntarily insured via statutory health insurance. And the same goes for statutory long-term care insurance. And another example for direct non-cash support are subsidies for facilities. For instance, students can reside in student accommodation at reduced prices, or they can get food at cafeterias or refectories, also at publicly subsidized prices. And there are, for instance, transportation subsidies. If students use public transport and they use local or regional buses or trams, then they pay reduced prices. And these are examples for direct non-cash support. And finally, there is support for students' parents, that is indirect support cash. And the most famous example in Germany is child benefits that are paid to students' parents, which accounts for 10% of all public support. And also child benefits for parents who are working for the civil service, that is 2%. If students' parents are unemployed and they have children participating in higher education, then they may get an add-on to unemployment benefits. This is 0.1% of all public support. And the same goes for short-time working benefits of parents. And there's a number of tax exemptions for students' parents. Students who have children in higher education may get different kinds of tax exemptions. And these are also examples for indirect cash support to students' parents. And to sum this up and to give you a better overview, we can take a look at the circle diagram. So in 2023, the public sector paid almost 36 billion euros on higher education. And the lion's share went to teaching allocations at public higher education institutions. That was 64% of all public support. Then the category indirect cash support to students' parents, tax exemptions, 3%, child-related payments, 14%. Direct cash, non-cash support to students, that is subsidies for public transportation, 1%, subsidies for facilities, 2%, and public health care, 9% of all public support. And finally, direct cash support to students includes public grants and loan subsidies. That makes up all in all 7% of all public support. Now, keeping that in mind, we can go back to the planned analysis scheme. So in the next step, we will take a look at the cost sharing for higher education funding between the private and the public sector. And in 2023, the public and the private sector together spent almost 60 billion euro on higher education. And the private or the public sector shouldered the lion's share, which was 60% of all expenses for higher education. And the private sector accounted for the residual that was 40%. If we compare this with a predecessor study, so we make a time comparison, then we'll find the following. Compared to the reporting year 2004, the public sector, the share of the public sector has increased by 4 percentage points, while the share of the private sector has decreased also by 4 percentage points. A partial explanation why that is will be given with the next analysis, where we take a closer look at this share, 60% of all support to higher education. This share of 60% was allocated in the following way. 64% of all public support to higher education in 2023 was allocated to higher education institutions for the financing of teaching. And the remainder, 36% of all public support was designated at private households. That means to students and students' parents. If we take a look again at the time comparison, then we will find that the share for expenses for higher education institutions has increased by 6 percentage points, while the share for expenses for private households has decreased by 6 percentage points. And one of the reasons for the increase in expenses for higher education institutions might be that after 2004, the federal government in Germany and the governments of the German Länder have initiated various programs and pacts to improve teaching at higher education institutions. And this is probably one of the reasons for the increase in the share of expenses for higher education institutions, and can also partially explain the increase in the public share in all expenses to higher education. Now, in the last step, we take a look at the expenses for private households and take a look at the allocation of public funds to students and students' parents. And in 2023, public support to private households was allocated in the following way. 20% of this support was geared towards students in the form of cash support. That is, for instance, BAföG grants, scholarships, or for instance, orphans' pensions and things like that. A bit more than a third of this support was going to students in the form of transfers in kind, direct non-cash support. That includes, for instance, healthcare insurance free of contribution or at reduced contribution, long-term care insurance free of contributions or at reduced contributions, and things like that. And the major part of public support to private households was geared towards students' parents, and that accounted for 47% of all public support to private households. In a time comparison, we will find that direct cash support to students has hardly changed. So there was a marginal increase of 1 percentage point. And direct non-cash support to students has decreased by 3 percentage points. And cash support to students' parents has increased by 3 percentage points. Okay, to sum this up a little bit, in time comparison, the public sector has invested clearly more additional resources in higher education than the private one. And in doing so, the institutional support to higher education institutions has increased more than personalized support. And in terms of person-related public support, transfers in kind for students have increased the least. And in percentage terms, they have even fallen by 3 percentage points. And the unusual high level of support for students' parents has increased further by 3 percentage points. And in a last step, I would like to make a sort of assessment of the findings that I've just presented. So a few possible evaluation criteria for the funding of higher education systems are effectiveness, efficiency, transparency, and steerability. Effectiveness is, on the one hand, the suitability of instruments to achieve sufficient funding of publicly supported students. And we have seen that the largest share in personalized public support, that was 47% in 2023, is geared at students' parents. And according to the last German social survey, nearly 83% of students have reported to receive support from their parents and other relatives. That means that the students' parents seem very much to obey their maintenance obligations, because in Germany, students have maintenance claim towards their parents until the first, how can I put it, the first job qualification is achieved. And if the first vocational qualification of young people is higher education, then students' parents are obliged to provide funding for their own children's higher education. And based on the data from the German social survey, a lot of parents do give support to their studying children. But an effectiveness problem may arise if students' parents do not want to support their studying children at all or less than the maintenance law provides for. Unfortunately, I don't have robust data on this, on the share of students' parents that don't provide funds for their children, although they are legally obliged to this. But we know that there are some students who sue their parents because they don't get the funding that their parents should give their children by law. Effectiveness, on the other hand, refers also to the suitability of instruments to achieve sufficient funding of FIs. And since many years, there has been empirical evidence that universities in Germany are underfunded. And in the predecessor study, we have found that in international comparison, Germany spent the lowest proportion of public funding on universities as opposed to personalized public support. To give you a number, out of the 6 countries that took part in the predecessor study, Germany had the lowest share of public allocation to universities, and that was 58% of all public support. And the country with the second lowest share in this respect was the Netherlands at 76%. So 56% in Germany compared to 76% in the Netherlands. This may also be one of the reasons for the underfunding of public higher education institutions in Germany. And if we take a look at the current situation, we see that inflation, wage increases in the public sector, and spending cuts in the public sector are putting additional financial pressure on universities. And so we might conclude that effectiveness in funding of higher education institutions is rather not achieved due to a lack of resources, but not to a lack of fundamental inadequacy of the instruments. Efficiency is another criterion that can be used for assessing our findings. And efficiency may mean the reaching of a given target by minimum use of resources. And we have found that in Germany, the higher education funding system, if we take really an in-depth look at the system, is based on a very large number of support items from various subsystems, such as the tax system, all branches of the social security system, and the public transport system. And that, of course, requires an extensive bureaucracy and numerous internal administrative coordination processes. And so very tentative finding or guess may be that the administrative costs for the funding of the system may not be the lowest cost possible. Transparency is another criterion that can be used for the evaluation. Transparency is on the one hand needed for better political and administrative control. So the public budget can be used to control the government and the public administration. And transparency is also needed to give potential demanders of public support, that means potential students, a better overview of what is available to them. And due to the complexity of the whole funding system and the difficulties to quantify all public support items, transparency is not achieved. And finally, the last criterion that I will take a look at is steerability. That means steerability of the whole funding system. And the predecessor study has shown that in Germany, direct cash support to students, like for instance, BAföG, and indirect support to students' parents, especially in the form of tax exemptions, contradict each other in terms of counteracting social disparities. That means direct support to students is decreasing social disparities, but indirect support to students' parents, especially in the form of tax exemptions, is increasing social disparities. And we have found in the predecessor study that there is no clear steering effect with respect to the social dimension of higher education. And I couldn't, unfortunately, not conduct microeconomic analysis due to a lack of time. But the public funding system in Germany is, although there were some structural changes, the system itself has not changed very much, and the support categories that are responsible for the findings in the predecessor study are still ongoing, and therefore the effects will not have changed substantially, and therefore it can be concluded that there is still this diffusion of a steering effect concerning the social dimension. Okay, that is actually all from my side. And yeah, maybe if you have any questions or comments, then we can discuss this a little bit further.
Thank you very much, Christoph, for those interesting findings that you showed us. Before I open the floor to the questions, it actually what it made me think about, besides the funding question, is actually that it brought me back to the EUROSTUDENT policy workshop that we had in Brussels some weeks ago, where our focus topic was cross-sectoral policy making. And actually this topic was raised or touched upon here as well, because as you said, the funding system is so complicated and so complex that it's about tax policy and social policy, and even like public transport system that is has an impact of student funding as well. So once again, a very good example actually how higher education policy and the student life is actually not only about higher education policy, but about so many other topics and policy fields as well. But of course, back to your findings and your study. Any questions from the audience? Either to the chat. Yes, Aune will raise hand. So please, Aune.
Yes. Hello. Thank you so much for the comprehensive presentation, really interesting. I come from the University of Tartu, Estonia, and then the debates about the public and private funding of higher education is very up to date. I just wanted to ask two clarifying questions. Do I understand correctly that the direct allocation to the institutions, does that exclude research money? It's totally, yeah, okay, I
Yes,
get it already.
Yeah.
And another question is comparing the two data points, the time of the previous study and now, did you calculate also the funding per student? Is per student funding increased considerably compared to the increase in economy, or is the funding quite similar compared to the two data points? Or maybe it was not your aim at all to take this into consideration.
I would have loved to take this into consideration, but it wasn't possible to execute microeconomic analysis. We did that in the predecessor study, but that would have taken additional resources, which I didn't have. So I was just lucky to update the macroeconomic analysis. But I can't answer your question in which way the per capita support for students has changed. Of course, the absolute amounts have increased on all different public support items that I showed in the table. But I can't tell to what degree the per capita support for students has increased. I wish I could.
Yes, Auna, did you want
to? Sorry, one follow-up question is about, it's not related exactly to the earlier, but the question about the private funding, is this mainly or is it about tuition fees, or what kind of items the private funding includes?
The private funding was calculated based on student income. And student income includes, for instance, students' income from working alongside studies. It includes transfers, intra-family transfers that they receive from their parents, from their partner or other relatives. And it also includes, for instance, loans or other support that students might get from their employer. So not in terms of employment income, but sometimes students who actually perform dual education. That means they are studying at a higher education institution, and at the same time they're doing an apprenticeship at a company. They sometimes get grants or loans from their employers as well. And all this is included in student income. And from the student income, I subtracted all public support, for instance, BAföG or scholarships from the public sector, which is included in student income. That was subtracted. And also the support to students' parents in the form of child benefit or tax exemptions was subtracted from student income because the simple assumption was that the public support that is going to the students' parents is completely passed on to the students, to the children in higher education. This is not always true, as I already explained, but in many cases, the students' parents pass on their public support to their children. And this was all excluded from student income. And the remainder was the private expenses on higher education.
Any other comments, questions something that needs clarifying? Until our listeners are still thinking. Actually, what seemed very surprising and interesting for me is the high importance of public support for students' parents. What is the reason that the public support for students' parents is so important in Germany? Any historical reasons behind that, or how would you explain that?
Yeah, it's certainly due to historical reasons. In the predecessor study, we found that the public support to students' parents nowadays around 47% of all public support to private households, and in the predecessor study, 44% was in international comparison unusually high. To give you a number, out of the 6 countries that took part in the predecessor study, that was the Czech Republic, England, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, and Spain. The country with the second highest share in this respect was the Czech Republic at 18%. So 44% at the time was really extraordinarily high. And to some extent, it's due to the fact that in Germany, the students' parents are responsible for funding their own children's higher education, at least until they have the first qualification for the labor market. But this is also true in the Czech Republic, at least at the time, and also to some extent in the Netherlands. But in Germany, the share which was going to the students' parents was extraordinarily high. And I think that is to some extent, yeah, if we conduct, for instance, political economy analysis, we might think, okay, policymakers want to make sure that certain group of the population is giving their votes to the policymakers during political elections. And this could be one way to satisfy the needs of this group. And at the same time, the policymakers are also giving public support to families that are not well off financially. So in that way, this is a way to satisfy the need of various groups that are involved in the funding of higher education. And the German system of public support for higher education is a system that was not created from scratch. So it is a system that has developed historically over many decades. And you can tell that not all parts of the system, like the tax system, the social security system, and public transportation system, and this, it's not that all these subsystems that they work together very well, but they are more or less separate from each other. And in that way, they develop somewhat independently from each other. And yeah, like I said, so one explanation for the rather high share of indirect cash support, that means support to students' parents, may be that policymakers want to satisfy to some extent the wishes of different kinds of voters, and tax exemptions are certainly one way of doing this.
Very, very interesting. Before I give a word to Eric, who wants to ask or comment something, one little tiny detail about support to parents, students' parents as well, that when I was listening to you, I think you seem to suggest that uh, the reducing the share of public support to students' parents is something that could be maybe logical or a good way to go. But as you just explained, also the political landscape and the need to satisfy the different voters, do you think that there is a realistic chance of this happening?
I don't think that something like this will happen, because yeah, in the past, when we had a chancellor called Gerhard Schröder, we had minister which was responsible for research and higher education, that came up with the idea that the child benefit that is paid to the students' parents should be paid to the students instead. So that there wouldn't be a risk of an inappropriate use of means by the students' parents. And the Chancellor Gerhard Schröder said, oh no, we can't do that because the students' parents need the child benefit to pay off their mortgage. And he said it albeit a bit polemically. But I think there is a little chance that there will be reforms to fundamentally shift public support to students' parents directly to the students. And I mean, we have seen, for instance, by data from the German Social Survey, that a lot of students receive support from their parents. And I would say that the majority or a vast majority of students' parents is trying to support their children as good as possible. But at least we know some empirical cases where students sued their parents because they didn't receive the support that they are legally obliged to. And at least that problem could be solved by giving a greater share of the public support to students' parents directly to their children. But I don't think that this is going to happen because that would require a major tax reform. And I doubt that something like this will happen.
It sounds really like something like political scientists would call path dependency, that it has been done like that so long time that it's very, very difficult to change the system now. But now to Eric Overland, your question or comment, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Erik Overland. I'm a special envoy for education and research for the Norwegian government in Berlin, Germany. Christoph, first of all, thank you for a very comprehensive and interesting presentation. I have one question regarding the fact that you described that you said that the German system hasn't changed much the last decades. Now I know that the new government and also partly part of the former government, Olaf Scholz, they introduced the term Zeitenwende because they want to, go into different political areas and different sectors to try to see if you can really reform things and go deeply into changing the structure of different political areas, and I guess that also should be relevant for the higher educational sector. I know that in the research area they have trying to do a lot. But from your point of view, if you try to look a bit forward, how do you interpret, for example, the new coalition agreement between SPD and CDU-CSU in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, it's well. First of all, it's true that the funding system shows a certain stability. I have shown that in time comparison, there are some changes, like for instance, the increase in the public share in funding of higher education, or the increase in the share of expenses for higher education institutions. So there were some structural changes. But I think these are quite moderate changes. And all in all, I would say the time comparison shows that there's a certain stability of the system. And as far as the outlook is concerned, I think the problem for the funding of higher education is that the public sector in Germany and probably also in other countries seems to be a bit overstretched because for many years, Germany and also other European countries have gone through various crises, like, for instance, the banking crisis in 2007, Corona crisis in 2020. And this is all covered by the climate crisis, which is also demanding more public funds. And so there are several crisis events that require the public sector to pay more money than they actually would want to. And I think this is going to continue, as you mentioned, the so-called Zeitenwende, which Olaf Scholz described, and that will see a massive indebtedness of the public sector in Germany. Or at least they now have the allowance to massively go into public debt. But a lot of the money will go, for instance, to defense and other things. And raising public debt is definitely a means that can relax the budget constraint of the public sector. But as I said, a lot of money is already designed to go to other purposes, like, for instance, defense. And I think that in the future, the situation of public higher education institutions and probably of students will still remain difficult. And I don't expect that a large amount of the public debt will be shifted to the public sector.
Thank you, Eric, for your comment and question, and also for Christoph for elaborating this topic further. Any other questions or comments? Discussion has been nicely going, but we still have, yes, Auna, once again, please.
Yes, I'm sorry for taking the floor, but if the others are not, then I take this chance to ask about, just to clarify again about this relationship to parents. You said that it's until the first qualification or labor market relevant qualification.
Yeah.
In higher education context, is bachelor degree considered a relevant labor market qualification, or it's only master's degree?
No, it's the bachelor and a consecutive master degree. So if students leave school, for instance, they leave grammar school and they have the higher education entrance qualification, and they start bachelor's study program, then the parents are responsible for funding the study program. And if the student continues with a consecutive master's program, then the student's parents are also obliged to pay for this education.
Okay, so it depends whether it's consecutive. So if there is a break between bachelor and master, or there is a kind of a different program, then it's not. Then the bachelor can be their last qualification also.
Yeah,
okay.
True.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my last question before we wrap it up. We know that always when we are researching something and there is a predecessor study and we start a new one, and we're thinking that, okay, we'll see how the results will be now and what has changed. Christoph, with respect to the previous study from 2007 and 8, is there something that took you by surprise when you saw the new results?
Yeah, actually, I had no idea what the new results would look like. And I didn't make any guesses or something like that. Just try to quantify everything that we already calculated almost 2 decades ago as good as possible. And I was just curious what I would end up with. Yeah, I was a bit surprised, for instance, by the structural change in public support to private households. I was a bit surprised that direct non-cash support, that means transfers in kind to students, has decreased by 3 percentage points. I wouldn't have expected that. And this decrease was especially caused by, let me see, yeah. You can't see the time comparison in this table, but the decrease in direct non-cash support was mainly due to a lower share of non-contributory statutory health insurance and especially subsidies for facilities. So this percentage decreased by 1.5 percentage points. And this support item decreased by 1.8 percentage points. And I was surprised that this decrease was relatively clear compared to other relative changes in the data. But yeah, like I said, I didn't have any expectations in the beginning. And it was just interesting to see that there are some structural changes. But yeah, this was, I think, the biggest surprise to me that we had some clear decreases in these two support items.
Yeah, very interesting. As you before said, there are still so many things that we could look into with the data. So I hope we can have you here also in the future discussing all these topics. Thank you, Christoph, for this very intriguing presentation. And of course, thanks to all our listeners who commented, who asked questions, and were just here. I think it's a wrap for today. And EUROSTUDENT Talks will be on a summer break in July and August, as usually. But of course, we will be back in September with new topics, new ideas, so stay tuned. And if you have missed any of our previous webinars, then check eurostudent.eu and maybe you can rewatch some of the ones that you didn't see live previously. So thank you, everybody, and please have a nice day.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much
Bye.
for attending this session. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.